Welcome back to Am I Creative? If you are or want to be a creative individual but often wonder, am I creative? Then keep listening because no matter what you're struggling with, spoiler alert, you are creative. Guys, today we're talking about imposter syndrome.
Ooh.
It affects so many people, ourselves included, and I believe it is a leading reason why we question our abilities and undermine ourselves.
Speaking of imposter syndrome, I actually heard a story about a lady, Andrea, a little while ago. She was talking about how she had really intense imposter syndrome and that caused her to actually quit her amazing job that she was given because she felt like she wasn't worthy or good enough or that she was going to be found out as a fraud. And I just thought that that was so crazy because if someone employed you, they probably know that you're capable and they trust you to do the job, but she had just that feeling of fear inside of her that just crushed her and caused her to quit her job. And they were like, ma'am, can we know why? Because, like, we love you. Please come back. And then I don't know if she went back or not, but wow, imposter syndrome can ruin your life.
That is insane.
Yeah.
That's how powerful imposter syndrome is. And it can be like that if we don't know how to overcome it and deal with it correctly. Let's dive deeper. What is imposter syndrome and what does it look like in everyday life?
Honestly, for me, it's like allowing your weaknesses and insecurities to consume you to the point that you start to doubt yourself. And in other words, it's like letting your uncertainties overpower the faith you once had in yourself, maybe. And especially fears like comparison, self-doubt, high expectations of yourself, and just like you worrying about other people's opinion about you, and all of that acting like a handicap mentally, physically, and spiritually. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, in my understanding, I feel like imposter syndrome is often a mental block. It kind of cripples the way you think, and it prevents you from reaching your full potential and striving. Like, the peer comparison is real. It just causes so much fear of disappointing people, and it's like the only thing we can see after it starts to consume you. So the fear of being exposed for not measuring up to expectations or job, like I felt that, man. It's an invisible disease, really, and it plagues more than we think. And also it isolates you, and it can help put you on a path of spiraling depression and anxiety, and it's just a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, I think thinking that you're not good enough compared to your peers. So a lot about comparison here. You either feel scared and uncomfortable when engaging in certain areas, or you just don't engage at all because you're that scared to be let down by yourself and to let others down.
Yeah.
Because of by your performance. Imposter syndrome to me is really toxic because it's completely rooted in fear. It's and fear, I think, really brings out your worst performance. It can mask itself as like a motivation, like, oh, like I really want to make this really perfect, and you feel like you're really motivated, but it's actually rooted in a fear of being discovered as less than what others expect of you. So it's just really fear-driven. And I think that we are actually at our best when we are fueled by love and joy rather than fear or anxiety. This is also really hard to deal with because it's something in the mind.
Yeah.
It's not like it's not like any physical disease. It's just like, okay, there's a treatment for that, right? Like, oh, I have eczema, dry skin. Okay, moisturize that, right? Oh, I have a upset stomach, oh, drink some milk to soothe the acids or take some stomach medication. But for this, it's like, it's in the mind. And it's especially hard when we need to really intentionally work on changing our mindset. Because once we're used to having a certain mindset, it takes effort to develop a new mindset and then remove the old mindset. But if we are willing to change it, though, just imagine how much more of our potential we can unlock, right? Yeah.
let's talk about 5 different types of imposter syndrome from healthline.com.
Link in the comments. So the first one is actually super hit that's close to home because it's the superhero type. It says, you link competence to your ability to succeed in every role you hold, student, friend, employee, or parent. Failing to successfully navigate the demands of these roles simply proves, in your opinion, your inadequacy. To succeed, then, you push yourself to the limit, expending as much energy as possible in every role. Still, even this maximum effort may not resolve your imposter feelings. You might think, I should be able to do more, or this should be easier.
That's a really tough one.
Yeah.
You're toiling at absolutely everything you do, and then the end product is still you feeling essentially like a failure because it's just not good enough to
Yeah.
your expectations.
Exactly.
That's wild.
What about the next one?
Natural genius is the second type. You've spent your life picking up new skills with little effort and believe you should understand new material and processes right away. You believe that competent people can handle anything with little difficulty, and it leads you to feel like a fraud when you have a hard time. If something doesn't come easily to you or you fail to succeed on your first try, you might feel ashamed and embarrassed.
Yeah, that's tough.
Yeah, for sure. That one hits close to home for me.
And the next one's expert. Before you can consider your work a success, you want to learn everything there is to know on the topic. You might spend so much time pursuing your quest for more information that you end up having to devote more time to your main task. Since you believe you should have all your answers, you might consider yourself a fraud or failure when you can't answer a question or encounter some knowledge you previously missed.
Yeah, the next one, also relevant. Maybe I need some help. It's the perfectionist type. So you focus primarily on how you do things, often to the point where you demand perfection of yourself in every aspect of life. Yet, since perfection isn't always a realistic goal, you can't meet these standards. Instead of acknowledging the hard work you've put into after completing a task, you might criticize yourself for small mistakes and feel ashamed of your failure. You might even avoid trying new things if you believe you can't do them perfectly the first time. Big oof.
Yeah, tough.
Yikes.
And the last one, number 5, is soloist. You believe you should be able to handle everything solo. If you can't achieve success independently, you consider yourself unworthy. Asking someone for help or accepting support when it's offered doesn't just mean failing your own high standards. It also means admitting your inadequacies and showing yourself as a failure. So the common thing I'm hearing through all 5 of these types is striving way too hard, having way too high expectations, and the end result is feeling like a failure.
Yeah,
Or
that's
fear of
right.
failure. Yeah. I feel like for me, I relate the most to expert, and secondary is like perfectionist. So for the longest time, before I started teaching dance, I was like a hardworking dancer student. I always had the student mindset. And for the longest time, even when I started getting good, I was like, no, I can't teach. Like, that's not for me. Like, there's so much you need to know, and there's so much you need to prepare and be good at and be knowledgeable and educated before you can teach ever, or else you're just like a fraud teacher. And literally everyone will be like, you're teaching? Can you even teach? Like, so for the longest time, that's what happened. And I think the secondary thing, I actually remember a story back then when I took 12 back-to-back workshop dance classes.
Oh my god.
Okay.
That's a lot.
There was,
how in the same day?
I think it was between 2 days or something. So it was like 6 classes.
That's so
there was
much.
there was a break. But I think just before then, maybe the week before, I took another workshop with a out-of-town choreographer, and she was a famous one. And I didn't expect anything, but I had the honor to dance with that choreographer at the end, and I was super shocked. It was like a confidence boost for me, right? And so I was just like, you know what? Like, I'm not that bad at dancing. Like, I'm getting better and stuff. And so I was confident. And then going into this 12 classes, I didn't get selected for one because one, I was a little bit more like boosted, and like my mentor was like staring at me. And then there was a bunch of out of town choreographers, and I was just like putting so much pressure on myself and just overthinking. The imposter syndrome, imposter sister decided to come attack me. And just the whole entire time, I started dancing worse and worse. I was just feeling more down as the classes went on. I wasn't enjoying it anymore. And by the last class, I couldn't take it. I was just like, I cried in front of everyone. I was so embarrassed because I was crying. I'm like, why am I crying right now? I was like, this is stupid. I don't know why I'm crying, but I just felt like it was that mindset that I was beating myself up the entire time till I died literally at the end.
No, you didn't though.
I was just like so down. I was like,
Mentally
I
died.
suck. Literally, like out of all these 12 classes, no one chose me even once. I feel so embarrassed, and I don't even know what to think anymore. But I think that was so humbling for me, and such a huge lesson that sometimes it's just in your head. You're just doing it to yourself. And you don't suck. Like,
Also, how many people were in that class?
so many people.
Yeah, bro.
Exactly. I don't know. So I think that perfectionism, I think my mindset was definitely like, oh, I cannot mess up even one move, because if I mess up, all these people are watching and it'd be so embarrassing. So I need to dance it perfectly. But when I think like that, then I will mess up, which will lead to another mess up, which will make myself be more down. And then the next class is just you're already starting with like 60%.
Ooh.
So you're just like, no, there's no going up from
12
there.
classes later, -20.
Yeah, you're just empty. So that was definitely an experience I learned from, and which helped me a lot in who I am today. And now I can teach without this breaking in my mind.
That's growth.
Growth, y'all.
All right, so I'm kind of a mix of a few of these types, right? Primarily a perfectionist type. I find myself consuming hours of content before I try to do something, because I want to make sure I know like all the information I need to be like really good at it right away, because I feel like I have to do it really perfectly, or else it's gonna be really embarrassing. I don't know why I think I have to be perfect the first try, but you know. And when I get caught up in trying to be perfect in the first try, I often just procrastinate forever and I miss deadlines. Like, what am I doing? And the next type is the superhero type, right? I also see that in myself, because I like to go the extra mile, whether it be a friend or a sister or a student or an employee. I try to do my best so that people will see that I'm, a good friend, a really good employee. I'm really helpful, really kind, whatever. But to what extent is that healthy? Because like
Half dead.
my imposter syndrome really, I think, stems from a lot of things from my past. Like when I was still in school, someone said some words to me that left seeds of doubt and inferiority or lack of skills in my brain. And like I still think about it sometimes, and it's tough, but I'm working on it, right?
Yeah.
So there was this one time I was helping some other student, because I was an alumni at that point, and then someone from my class came by as well, and he's like, "Are you qualified to be helping them?
So
Should you be doing that?" And I was like, "Okay, first of all, rude, but also, am I good enough?" Like, so that kind of crushed me, like honestly, for a few years, really. And I always thought that, I never did it growing up, so maybe I'm just not gonna be as good as them or something. But really, I was just reading too much into it. I was
do you feel like
overthinking
you had imposter syndrome already, or he kind of like triggered it?
I already had imposter syndrome going in, because everyone else had more experience and interest before starting the school than I did. So I kind of went in as a beginner. But if you think about it, where I was at that point, having not already had that background, I was doing really well for myself. So I didn't need to be having imposter syndrome, but that person's words really stuck with me.
Yeah.
right? And I just didn't want to feel like that, but also like you can't shake it. So I found that what helped me is just really changing my perspective, changing my mind, and knowing who I am.
Oh, yeah.
And just remembering that my journey is unique, right? Where I am in
important.
life, I shouldn't compare to others. I'm never going to feel good enough if I keep thinking, oh, I'm not as good as this person. I'm not going to be promoted as quickly as others. Or, I don't know, like, if you keep comparing yourself, you're never going to be good enough. So I just got to stop. Just got to stop, bro.
Oh, that's truth right there.
Yeah. So I actually super recently, another example. So at work, I was trying to help someone who was asking questions in the group chat, but someone else was already helping them, but they weren't responding super fast. So I thought I would type a quick little help and reply. And then I sat there and I was like, am I being annoying? Was that too much? Like, was that necessary? Or like, do I just think I'm being helpful, but I'm actually being really annoying? And then I asked my husband, he's like, no, man, like, that's normal. It's okay to help people. Like,
Just being helpful.
that's not annoying. You're crazy. So I found myself, like, doubting myself for no reason, for, like, the stupidest things. And I shouldn't have to feel that way. I shouldn't have to ask myself, am I being annoying?
Yeah.
Dang. Yeah, but even though I've worked on forgetting what that person said to me years ago and worked on not overthinking or thinking too much into it, it still kind of affects me in the day-to-day. And it doesn't fully eradicate that feeling of imposter syndrome, right? Yeah,
Takes time.
it's a journey.
It goes deeper than just trying to forget.
Yeah, exactly. And also another recent example, I got a new job. The supervisors are close friends, so naturally I was like, did I deserve that job? Or was that just like, it fell into my lap and I got it because I knew someone, right? But honestly, I deserve that job. And I deserve to be recognized for a hardworking person that I am.
Yes.
And the good quality of work I put out. And being helpful in the group chat.
Yes.
Yeah.
Helpful, not annoying.
Yes, not annoying. Yeah, that's me.
Yeah, totally. And I think there's mental aspects to healing from this type of thinking, but there's also like a spiritual aspect.
Absolutely, yeah.
I think when you believe in some like these kind of ideas, it's not just mental. Like there's almost like a unspoken power that takes root in your mind. So it's also worth it to explore like how can we eradicate it on an even deeper level and achieve like peace and wellness even deeper. Yeah. So personally, I relate mostly to natural genius, perfectionist, and a little bit of expert. So I'm a beautiful little smoothie here.
Okay.
So music always came easy to me since I was young. I have really strong relative pitch and a good sense of harmony. So I was actually a natural, right, for music. But I realized over the years that once my natural capacity runs out, I get stuck. And instead of working past plateaus, I would just hover at the same level forever. Now, I touched on this a little bit last time, but I'm just going to go into a little more detail today. I wouldn't try because I didn't feel like I'd be able to do it or understand it. And I also felt like I should be able to wing things relatively easily. So doing it perfect the first time, like, again, like, why is that a thing? Now that we are questioning it, it's just like, that's not a realistic requirement for ourselves. Now, the perfectionist came in heavily when it came to producing anything. Even though I've been a gigging musician since I was 10, I've been playing at church and different performances, different competitions. And my biggest dream since I was 13 was to write songs and be a rock star. Despite all this, I have actually produced very little content. I feel like when you physically make something and it now exists, that's like a very tangible measure of whether you're a failure or not. Like, so then by making it and potentially it sucking is like, I have a fear of that, I guess.
Uncomfy.
It's just like, ooh, should I wait till I'm a little bit better before I like make something that just like exists, right? Like it's not, if I just sing randomly to myself, it's just poof into the air and it's gone, right?
It's like last time when you talked about how your old songs make you cringe, but we still like them. Like,
Yeah, I know.
It's a sign of growth.
Yes, and I recognize that now, but like this is like during my process,
Yeah.
right? So within this process, I'm just like, if I record it and upload it, it's like that's a tangible
out
measure of like, was it good or not? And I'll fixate on like, okay, this doesn't sound professional enough. This doesn't sound according to the standard. This is, I don't have enough skills to reach that. I don't know how to achieve that effect or something like that. And so there was like that extreme worry of like, if I go through with a project and I produce it and it's, you know, the fear of like letting down myself and potentially letting down others and maybe others not liking what I produce, it all played into that. And so it was like a lot of comparison and perfectionism. I used to think that the ideas in my head aren't worth producing because both my peer standard and industry standards are incredibly high. And because of this, and because of not producing anything, I would never call myself a legitimate musician because I feel I didn't have anything to actually back that claim. So, in order to fix that, I went down another path of the expert. And interestingly, my expert tendencies also greatly contribute to my gas. For those who missed episode 1, it stands for Gear Acquisition Syndrome. So I would buy a lot of gear and I feel like, I need this gear to help me achieve this level of professionalism in order to make my product a little bit better. So it went beyond like just trying to up my own skills. It was also like, now I need to spend large amounts of money to buy stuff so I can feel like I can reach that unrealistic level of perfection that I have in my mind.
Because in the makeup world, we think that, if I buy the best products, I will be such a good artist.
Yeah.
It's not true. You're still bad at it, okay? Just buying luxury doesn't mean you good.
Yeah, so I'm definitely guilty of the not being, okay, I shouldn't say that, but the type that like tries to buy more gear to feel like I'm upping my game in that way. And so I would watch hours and hours of videos to learn more about music or video work before I would even start a project. And I've invested tens of thousands of dollars into equipment that I believed I needed to be more successful. Now, some of these things aren't necessarily bad, but it was my mindset and how these things stem from it that made me realize I needed a change, right? Because it's not just rooted in like, an excellent spirit. Like, because I know so many people who are just like, that's good enough, whatever. And then the standard is none, right? And I pride myself in being like, I have standards. Like, I like doing things excellently, right? But this is so much beyond like excellence because this is now perfectionism rooted in fear.
Yeah.
So that's a big problem. So now, guys, you can start taking notes. But one of my biggest breakthroughs came when I finally decided to call myself a musician and producer. I told myself, okay, right from now on, I am a musician and I am a music producer. And I kid you not, just from that one small shift in identity in my mind. And of course, God's grace. Like I said, the spiritual aspect, right? I started to learn new songs I only dreamed of playing for 10 years.
Dang.
This gave me motivation to move into more complex music and challenge myself to really become a strong musician. And especially a guitar player. In an electric guitar, there's two types of player, right? There's rhythm player and lead player. So rhythm player, you mostly just play chords, power chords, and it's like really simple. But lead player, you actually play a lot of like solos, scales, and stuff, and it's like really complicated. Like from the beginning, my goal was always to be the rhythm player because it was like, I think I can do that, right? But now after this shift in mindset, I'm like, you know what? I want to go for the lead player.
Come on.
I want to go for playing like all these beautiful melodies and cool things and tones. Because yeah, it's just like after I shifted my identity, I shifted away from my fears. I recognized that like I really can do things that I set my mind to. And as long as I'm not afraid and I don't procrastinate and I put the work in, I can do it, right?
Yeah.
And another breakthrough, so challenging myself to become a better musician. The reason for that is that I can properly express all the creative melodies and arrangements I have in my head. So it's no longer rooted in a fear of like, oh, what if people find out I'm a really bad guitar player? It's just like, no, I want to play better so I can like actually make better, more beautiful music. Another breakthrough was when I realized that instead of making something similar to what's already out there in the crowded industry, I can do something unique instead. And I learned that sometimes flaws can be incredibly beautiful and convey a rawness and emotion that a perfect piece cannot. So this is especially like in music. I think in the industry standard, everything is like perfect. Like they literally fit into the blocks and boxes. We literally quantize everything, like making the beat absolutely robotically perfect. And I just think like more and more I'm getting to appreciate like the human aspect of it. It's like, having small flaws doesn't necessarily mean that you're a bad musician. It just means that you're human and you don't necessarily replicate every single note exact same way every time, but there is beauty in that. So it was also really good to learn that. I also think that when you put your heart and soul into your art, nothing in the world can compare because you are unique. So when you put a part of you in there, literally you will be comparing apples to oranges. It's not the same thing. So comparison is something we have to very intentionally like speak out of our lives.
Bye, Felicia.
Yeah, because how can you, like it's just something that's you. Unless you make art, that's not you, right? Unless you make art that you don't put your heart and soul into. And maybe this is something we can explore more in a different episode, like putting your heart and soul in versus, copycat trends and it not really being rooted in your creative identity. But that's something for another episode.
Very interesting.
But now I put the time and resources to learn, not because I feel inadequate, but because I know it can help me expand my artistic vocabulary. I think that why you do what you do is often more important than what you're doing. That's the key here, to look deeper and find out what your core motivations and intentions are.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, now we have some tips for you, okay? This is the best part.
This is the note-taking part.
Now we have some tips for
Listen carefully.
Very jealous.
First of all, y'all, you are not an imposter. I said it, okay?
Amen. Yes.
Your success is absolutely not measured by where you're at in life compared to your peers, okay? Your journey is super unique. You bring important things to the table, okay?
Ooh.
Yep.
Remind yourself with positive affirmations. Put up the sticky notes. Just do it. It's not chuggy, just do it.
Your words are giving me life right now.
Amen.
Speak it, girl.
Speak it out for your ears to hear, okay?
Yes.
Affirmations, say them out loud to yourself. It's not embarrassing. You got to do it. Absorb it. My next tip.
Guys, spoken word, it actually changes something in the atmosphere because your words, it's actually breath coming out. And there's, when you speak, there's
Vibrations.
Yeah, there's vibrations. So it literally like changes your atmosphere. So it's very important.
Yeah, so speak it out for your ears to hear and absorb it. Now the next one. Okay, this one is very real because it just happened to me last week, but you probably have someone in your life that tells the truth and sometimes you hate it, but they will be so key in helping you snap out of your tunnel vision of self-berating hell.
Yeah.
So my friend was so frank with me last week that I literally still wanted to stay upset, but she was dropping facts that I couldn't deny, so I had to snap out of it. But I'm really grateful for her.
Yay,
but
friend.
At that point, I was just like, "Ugh, just let me be angry. Treasure your truthful friends, all right?
For sure.
For sure.
Now, my last tip. Make a habit of believing people when they give you encouragement or praise. All right?
Bro.
They're not just being nice. They say it because they believe that your ability is actually good and helpful and that they value you.
You're doing it to them.
Receiving compliments. That's wow.
Yeah.
There's an art to it.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
Instead of sheepishly thanking them and then listing all the things you didn't execute perfectly, take it as an opportunity
Guilty as charged.
to reflect on how much you've grown, okay? Ask for constructive criticism and don't let striving for perfection take the fun out of being creative. You don't have to be a master at something to be worthy of doing it, all right? Guys, listen. You don't have to be perfect to do something, especially art.
Is there perfection
What
in creativity?
is
It's not. What is perfect?
Because art is subjective, isn't it? So if it's
Super.
perfect to one person, it may not always seem perfect to everyone else.
yeah, exactly.
Guys, what are we doing here?
Like sometimes expensive paintings, we can see it and be like, that looks like a 5-year-old splatter abstract art. So I'm not sure what's going on here.
Yeah,
God.
I mean,
There's a painting that's literally just like a red stripe on like a navy blue background, I think. That is millions. Everyone is creating memes about it. It's like, if only I could draw one line and make $5 million.
I don't have the appreciation for fine art. I'm sorry.
Personal preferences. Anyway, my tips is it's so important to find that middle ground for everything in life, especially when it has to do with something that you love doing or something you're good at doing or reputable art. So it's so easy to start delving into a downward spiral, resulting in a fallout of that thing. Especially, let's say maybe it went from a hobby or something that you like and it changed into that's your job now. That changes kind of like
it
the work
does.
dynamic of it.
Totally.
And the same passion and love for it might change because of the changing factors and challenges. But you got to remember why you do it in the first place. Like, that is so important.
Yeah.
And another tip is it takes time to get better. It's not like, oh, today I'm like shambling really hard and suddenly had like a mental break. Tomorrow I have to be better. It just doesn't work that way, you know?
Militant in the wrong way.
Yeah, militant in the wrong way. And comparison and self-critique and perfecting should be done in a healthy way of growth.
Yeah.
Like
Yes.
processing your craft, gaining new inspirations, giving yourself the time needed to explore in the way that you function, okay? Another thing is like sometimes we try to do something in a way that it works for someone else.
Yes.
And it completely doesn't work for you and you're like, is there something wrong with me? But it's like, no. Maybe there is something wrong with you, like the way you think, maybe. But like something wrong with you, you can work on that. Like it's not that you're doing someone else's method and it doesn't work and then you're just like done with and you just can't get better. No, there's always a way. Yeah,
Guys,
that's pretty much
dropping too many facts here. Too many good truths.
Yeah.
That's what this podcast is for.
Yeah, there's so many things that we want to expand more on in other episodes, even from just what Kuris was saying. Like, how to do comparison healthily, because without comparison, we don't know how to grow ourselves, right? And then without knowing the standard, we don't know how exactly we're doing
Exactly.
in comparison. So we do need comparison, and we do need criticism, constructive criticism, self-criticism, self-analysis of your own work.
Yeah, healthy mid-ground.
Yeah.
And so, and in a different episode, we'll go in depth about, how to use that to your advantage rather than tearing yourself down with those things.
Yeah.
So, and I think Julie touched a little bit on this, but talk to someone you can trust and has good judgment. and ask them to truthfully tell you how they think you're doing. Because you're just like, oh, I'm doing horribly. I'm a failure. I'm not even a real musician. I'm a fraud. And then like my family, they are my people, you know? And when I'm in that mode, they're like, no, you're not. You're a real musician. You've been working at this for going on 19 years now. And
Are you old?
Oh my god.
dude, you went to music school. You literally have credentials for this. What do you mean you're not a musician? So yeah, have your people. They can help debunk any irrational thoughts or fears and give you some encouragement.
True that.
And I always talk to my sisters and my parents, and more often than not, I walk away feeling encouraged and more confident about what I'm doing.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
So I'm so grateful for them.
Yes. We here for you.
We're not talking about like you having a fear or worry and people just like brushing it off. It's not necessarily that, but what we're talking about is when you're so wrapped up in it into a very unhealthy place that you need someone else to help you snap out of that and just be like, hey, that is not true. Like, I know you have these fears. I acknowledge them. But from a factual standpoint, that's just actually not true.
Bro, it's eating you up alive.
Yeah, so let's come back to rationale. Let's come back to logic. Like, say it with me. That is actually not true. Like, look at this. That's not true. Okay. So I also think that it's okay to be in the process. Guys, it's a journey. Yeah. It's an ever long choose your own adventure. Yeah. It's an ever long journey. It's creativity is never like, oh, did it, done. Like,
Done.
did it, done. There's always more to explore. There is always something else to discover, to be in awe and wonder of, more beauty. The way God created this universe, it is so infinity. Like, it's so vast. There is no way we can know everything in this universe at all. So it's okay to really acknowledge that you're in the process, but just because you're in the process, it doesn't mean that you're not a musician or not an artist or you're not I'm not a makeup artist. No, but you like genuinely have an entire portfolio on your Instagram. How are you not a makeup artist?
I have no clients. Anyone want a makeup artist?
Yeah, man. So it's okay. Even if you're maybe just in amateur stages, like if it's something that you're really passionate about, it's okay to start calling yourself that. And I believe it's a mental shift that can help you propel even further into that passion of yours, and it can really benefit you. And it can help you embrace your art more deeply, and just like, it's one of those things that like, wow, like my life, I'm different today because today I am now a musician. Yeah. It's kind of like you got married and you're just kind of trying to absorb that. Like,
so we have a ceremony.
A change in status, right? A change in status. Yeah. So
come on.
Well,
we should be more celebratory about these kinds of things. Yeah.
Throw a DJ party.
Yeah.
DJ party.
Totally. And I think we also shouldn't be afraid to share things that aren't perfect or talk about a subject you don't feel like you're an expert on. Guys, we can just talk about it just to celebrate the fact that it exists.
Yeah.
Like, I love this. But it doesn't mean that I know absolutely everything, and just because I don't know everything, that I'm not qualified to even open my mouth about it. Like, no, if I love something, I'm just gonna talk about that.
Yeah.
Do you find that like when you really like a certain subject, you found something new or something you're really passionate about, like no matter who you're talking about it's somehow just gonna sort of gravitate towards that area, and you're just gonna start, it's an overflow from your heart.
Yeah.
I started making a rug and I told everybody. It's a lot of fun.
See, a true crafter.
Yeah.
Right?
Amazing.
But I think that it is natural for people, like whatever you find, new thing you find, or a new thing that you're really passionate about, as a natural overflow from your heart, you just want to share about it. You just want to talk about it. And I don't know why in our society we've created such a high standard around even just talking about anything. And then if you talk about something and it wasn't like 1,000% correct, people will literally like, bro, that's not correct. You're spreading information, like you're spreading misinformation, and they'll like take you down over that. And guys, we should afford each other just to like, hey, I'm not an expert, but I love this, so I'm going to talk about this. You know, and that should be okay, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, your process is just like a caterpillar turning into a butterfly. At certain stages, you may think that it looks horrible, but if we look back at the whole picture, we can see the beautiful cycle of life and growth. Not only can you help others learn, you can also uplift them by showing them that if you can overcome and transform, then they can too.
Yes.
So this is why we should share things that are imperfect, things that are in the process. Like, it doesn't even have to be a complete song. Maybe it's just a 20-second, 30-second tidbit, right? And just post it. It's just like, hey, this is what I came up with today. And it's beautiful to see that process and that growth curve, you know? Instead of just being like, I can only release songs only if they sound professional and is worthy to be on Spotify. That's not true. We have so many different sharing platforms these days. TikTok, if you want, not my personal choice. Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, all of these platforms. And it's for us to share. And when did it become that every post needs to be influencer level and like before we can share it? And everything has to be the absolute highlight reel of our life in order for it to be shown. And I think there's a lot of fear around showing just like who you are.
True.
And at the end of the day, really what brings you joy, right? Like, why are you putting out content that's so perfect and professional, but it doesn't really bring joy or express who you really are and what you're passionate about? So I think that's really important about creating content and putting out content, because like, yeah, you want to be professional, but to what extent?
So yeah, share tidbits, share your journey, share your learning process. I love those videos of people like how I created this and their process.
Yeah. Those
love,
are fun.
absolutely love those. And yeah, scream about what you love and celebrate it together without the pressure of having to be the expert on it, right?
Yeah. Guys,
You
you
sound
got
tired.
this.
You sound haggard.
I taught 2 classes before this, and I'm dead. One last tip, though, I got for y'all. It's kind of what they said already, but changing the way you speak to yourself, man, changes what you start to believe. And it takes believing in yourself before someone can believe in you and what you create. Because if you can't even believe in yourself, your entire being is probably screaming, I'm not confident and I can't do anything. And then other people are just like, I'm not too sure about you. Right?
That's another aspect of it, yeah.
Yeah. So
That's tough.
I totally
way you
echo
speak.
that.
Yeah.
If I don't believe in something that I'm doing, I
Why should others believe
literally, physically, mentally, spiritually cannot do it. Yeah.
All right, my last tip. People's words that have contributed to your imposter syndrome often comes from their own insecurities.
yeah.
Don't keep revisiting those words.
New can of worms.
Yeah.
You have not stopped learning and growing since those words were said, so why keep letting it ruin your life? All right? Your confidence, don't let it get ruined. You are not who you once were. As Meet the Robinsons championed, keep moving forward. It's a great movie, and I really believe in that saying, to just keep moving forward, keep growing, keep learning, and don't let the past hinder you from being who you were meant to be, and be creative.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let these things sit with you because I think our souls, our spirits need time to absorb these things. So let these ideas sit with you, and just whatever sticks, adopt it, right? Whatever doesn't stick, that's okay too, right? Everyone responds differently to different things. So yeah. Yeah, like one of them touched on this earlier, but a good way to measure whether you have a healthy mindset, either in work or creativity, is Marie Kondo's "Does this spark joy?" Right? Creativity is one of those things that it should spark joy. Out of anything that we do in our entire lives, that should spark joy. Otherwise, there's not really a large point in doing it, to be honest.
For sure.
So, whatever your creative endeavor is, look at it. Does this spark joy, right? And if there are good emotions with it, excellent. You're fairly healthy in it then. But if there is anxiety, there is fear, there is perfectionism, there's obstacles, there's just something blocking it in a way, and you just have this droning anxiousness inside of you, then it's time to really consider all of the things that we talked about today and to think about, okay, what could be the root cause of these negative feelings? And is there any ideas or words that I've accepted that are not true and are actually holding me back from really experiencing the real joy of what I'm doing? And just using this one question to measure that is so powerful. And it's so simple too, right? It's like, am I excited to play guitar? Yes. Okay, we're good, right? It's like, am I excited to play guitar? I don't know. I worry that I don't. What if I can't learn that? Okay, ma'am, slow down for a second. Okay, you're in the process. It's okay. This is normal. Yes.
Honestly, I really like to see like the struggles and challenges that creatives go through as that singular sand that keeps irritating the oyster. And if you start thinking like that, just think about the pearl, the beautiful pearl that comes out that's super unique in the end. And if you think like that, you're like, okay, that person that said this thing to me, and after you start like overcoming that, then it'll start becoming more and more beautiful into that pearl. So don't give up, y'all. You guys got this, and you are one of a kind.
Yeah, I echo that. Don't give up on putting out things that really bring you joy. And it's okay not to be like other creators or influencers or creatives who put out stuff that you admire. Like, even if you aren't as good as them, you still put out something unique, and that uniqueness is what brings people to your work. And that's the light that you shine that's not like anyone else's. So be unique and true to yourself.
Yeah.
Dude, piggybacking onto that, like, we need to find a joy in beauty in small things again.
Yeah.
I don't know when, but in our society, we have associated, we have celebrated the big wow things, like the big things. And we're like, wow, that's creative. That's a piece of art. That's beautiful. But the thing is, like, in a very quiet life, like this week I found a YouTuber called the Cottage Fairy. She is the epitome of finding joy and beauty in simple everyday life and nature and beautiful little creative and activities that bring out the real enjoyment of simple life. And we are so overstimulated to the point we feel like, oh, we need to watch the next biggest movie and or binge the next TV show or like go to this fancy restaurant or do all of these things in order to like be entertained and enjoy life, but that's not what it's all about. It's even being able to enjoy your life, not partying, not having large friend groups, not having expensive entertainment, but just finding joy and beauty in even small things. And I think this is something that will really help boom creatives because it's just like once you start focusing on this beauty of small things, you will start to sprout creativity literally everywhere you look. Everywhere you turn will be able to become a creative inspiration. Yeah. So if you are feeling uninspired and you're like on a creative block, simplify things. Simplify your life even, and just the amount of things that you consume, reduce them. Go back to the basics, right? Start appreciating things that are small And especially nature. I think there's so much peace we can draw from nature. Just go to a body of water, set up a little camping chair and just sit there and just absorb that, you know? It's almost like a little juice cleanse for your for your soul.
Actually, it's more akin to the skincare world. When your routine doesn't work for you anymore, you got to strip it all the way back and use only the basics, and that way your skin can heal the moisture barrier and become rebalanced and protected again, and then you can reintroduce the new things to it or stronger things, and it'll be able to respond well to it again.
Wow, that is a
Come on.
excellent comparison.
Skincare Instagram taught me.
Yeah, but guys, let's go back to even small things and start appreciating the beauty, because there's only a certain point we can raise the bar before we're just completely like doped out, even because we have dopamine high. We're always on a dopamine high, right?
Yep.
So people are quite literally doped out these days. But can we come back? You know, can we strip back and appreciate the small things? This will help boost your creativity a lot, I believe. Yeah. And yeah, I also highly recommend that channel, the Cottage Fairy. She blows my mind. The little crafts things she does, I'm just like mesmerized, because I'm like, what is she even making?
Trust the process.
And I'm like, what? Is that Jell-O? An ice cube thing for a drink? It was an ornament for the outdoors. I was mind blown. I'm like, what?
Looked like
I've never seen this before.
That's so cool.
Shook.
Ice puck.
Back to the point I was going to make. So yeah, I want to encourage you guys. You are one of a kind, and your process is magnificent. It is a contrast of the struggle that gives your victory more meaning and joy in the end.
Exactly.
Yeah. Imagine if you always did everything perfectly the first time. You would be bored out of your mind within a few years, or even months. You know, there's this episode in Futurama. Sorry, wrong show. In The Good Place, they actually address this, right? They go to the heaven, right? And then they go to all the most amazing places in the world and do all of the most amazing attractions and activities. And they were like, but what now?
Yeah.
I'm bored. And people they found people after a certain number of years, they actually become like brain dead from like how bored they were in The Good Place, because of like essentially experiencing everything at a high or doing everything perfectly, right?
Yeah.
And so what is a victory if there wasn't a struggle, right? It isn't a victory. It's just a thing.
A thing.
Right? The true meaning of life lies in this challenge. Will you learn, discover, grow, love, overcome hardship, and live your life to its fullest potential? Will you share your stories with others honestly and vulnerably? Through sadness or joy, will you capture the beauty and spread light to your fellow person? Will you live well?
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. So a life lived well is not by how much money you have or how successful you are. It's like what's been thrown at you, and how have you responded to them, and how have you loved those around you? That's what really actually matters.
So true.
Yeah. Well, that's all we have for you guys today. Thank you for listening. You are not an imposter. You are just in the process. And remember, you are creative.